So Arsenal, fresh off being crowned Premier League champions, looks set to make a move that isn't exactly dripping in superstar shine. Reports say the club have agreed a deal worth around 40 million euros with Club Brugge for Christos Tzolis, and now it's down to the final paperwork. And I can already hear the reaction from some corners. Really? That's the attacking name we're going big on? Because let's be honest, when a title-winning side goes shopping, people start dreaming. They picture the dazzling, headline-grabbing forward from a glamorous club. They think of the wow signing. Tzolis doesn't instantly land in that category. He's not the fashionable choice. He's not arriving with a Champions League winning badge on his sleeve. And his first taste of English football didn't exactly make him a household name. But here's the thing. That might be exactly why this move makes sense. Arsenal have just waved goodbye to one of the most effective, least theatrical players of the Arteta era, Leandro Trossard. Not the flashiest, not the fastest, not the biggest fee. Just relentlessly useful. The kind of footballer who doesn't need a marketing campaign, because his value shows up in moments that decide matches. And if you're looking at Tzolis through that lens, the idea starts to click. This is potentially another signing aimed less at winning the internet and more at winning games. First, let's talk about what Tzolis has actually done recently, because the output is impossible to ignore. Last season at Club Brugge, he put up outrageous numbers. 22 goals and 29 assists in 52 games across all competitions. Yes, Belgium is in the Premier League. The physicality, the tempo, the tactical pressure, it's different. But 51 direct goal contributions is still 51 direct goal contributions. You don't accidentally stumble into that kind of productivity. And Arsenal, reportedly, are paying about 40 million euros, roughly 34 million pounds, for a 24-year-old, an age where you're not buying potential in the abstract, you're buying a player entering his prime. In today's market, that's not a wild punt. It's a calculated investment. Of course, the biggest question everyone goes to is Norwich. What happened there? And the blunt record is this. He played 14 Premier League matches in a relegation season and didn't score in the league. That's not a footnote. It matters. But it shouldn't become a life sentence either. Think about the context. He arrived in England young, walked into a struggling team, and was asked to adapt immediately to the most punishing league in the world while everything around him was collapsing. Norwich weren't a stable platform for any attacker, especially not a teenager learning the pace and brutality of English football. After that, he didn't disappear. He rebuilt. Loans at 20 and Fortuna Dusseldorf helped him find his feet again, and then he absolutely exploded at Club Brugge. The player coming back to England now isn't the same player who left. That's the key point. Arsenal aren't buying a failed prospect. They're buying someone who took a tough chapter, didn't crumble, and remade himself. Now, stylistically, why would Arteta want him? Because Tzolis seems to tick the macro boxes Arsenal have prioritized for years. Pace, strength, versatility, work rate, and the willingness to do the defensive side of the job. These are non-negotiables in Arteta's arsenal. If you can't run, if you can't press, if you switch off without the ball, you don't play. Tzolis can play on either wing. He can attack the space behind a defense. He can carry the ball over distance with power. He can strike with either foot. And one detail that really stands out, he can get his shots away quickly without needing a huge windup. That matters more than people think, especially at Arsenal. Trossard made a living out of being decisive in tight moments. He didn't always need a runway of space. He didn't need 3 touches to set himself. Sometimes it was one shift of the ball, a short backlift, and suddenly the goalkeeper's picking it out of the net. Tzolis appears to have some of that same efficiency, that ability to create a finish or a final ball with just a sliver of opening. But then comes the big Premier League reality check. What happens when those slivers vanish? A lot of Tzolis' best work in Belgium has come when there's space in front of him, when he can open up his legs, drive into the gap, and force defenders to retreat. Arsenal don't get that luxury every week. Most opponents don't play open football against the champions. They sit deep. They slow the game down. They pack the box. They turn matches into a series of crowded little battles. We've seen how that can affect players who love space. Gabriel Martinelli is a great example. When Arsenal were more free-flowing in 2022-23, Martinelli thrived and hit 15 league goals. As teams started defending deeper and games became more congested, he had to work harder for the same impact. Tzolis is going to face that exact problem, maybe from day one. The Premier League will ask him to make faster decisions, combine in tighter areas, stay patient when the door never fully opens, and still keep his intensity when the game becomes stop-start and frustrating. That's why patience will be crucial, both from Arsenal and from the supporters. Physical tools can carry you through rough spells, but the speed of thought, the ability to solve tight defensive puzzles, that can take time. Even players who eventually succeed often need an adjustment period. And while we're talking about context, you can't separate the Tzolis story from the departure of Trossard. Trossard has now completed a move to Besiktas on a 3-year deal, with Arsenal reportedly bringing in around €18 million plus potential add-ons. He leaves after 174 appearances, with 36 goals and 34 assists. More than that, he leaves as a league champion. Trossard's legacy at Arsenal is that he consistently delivered without demanding attention. He chipped in when things were tight, when others were being doubled up, when the big names were being managed or marked out of games. That winner against West Ham during the title run-in is probably the kind of goal you point to and say, that's the value of having someone like him. And personally, I'll always remember that brilliant individual moment against Liverpool because it captured what he was about: touch, composure, efficiency, and a finish before the defense could even organize itself. Trossard also represents a reminder about how recruitment actually works in the real world, not the fantasy version. Because do you remember January 2023? Arsenal looked set to spend huge money on Mikel Arteta. Then Chelsea outbid them. Arsenal pivoted, went to Brighton and brought in Trossard instead. At the time, it felt like Arsenal had lost a transfer battle. In hindsight, it was one of the better twists of fortune in recent years. It underlines something that top clubs sometimes need to relearn. The most expensive player isn't automatically the best solution. Winning an auction doesn't guarantee you bought the right footballer. Sometimes a quieter alternative is simply more reliable, more suited to the system, and more ready to contribute immediately. So when Arsenal now turn to a productive attacker from Belgium who doesn't have the same hype attached to other names, it's natural to wonder, is history repeating itself? From what's being reported, Tzolis isn't necessarily the only attacking move Arsenal want to make. He's not automatically the headline signing just because the fee is substantial, but at around €40 million. He's also clearly not being brought in as a bench filler. Arsenal believe there's another level here. They're betting that his numbers are backed by real attributes and that his earlier struggle in England becomes a lesson rather than a label. And maybe that's the most compelling part of the whole deal. Tzolis already knows English football can be unforgiving. He's lived it. He's had the rough version of it. Now he comes back older, stronger, more complete, and carrying the confidence of a player who rebuilt his career instead of being defined by one failed chapter. Are there guarantees that his Belgian output will translate? Absolutely not. Premier League defenses are a different beast, and Arsenal will face low blocks constantly. But Arsenal aren't buying a teenager who arrived in a relegation fight. They're buying a 24-year-old with elite recent production, Premier League scars, and the profile Arteta keeps prioritizing. Trossard showed that it's not always about the biggest name or the biggest fee. Sometimes it's about the right player at the right moment for the right role. If Tzolis can give Arsenal even a portion of what Trossard gave, timely goals, timely assists, and that sense of inevitability when a game needs one decisive action, then this deal could look very clever very quickly. And on the way out, it's only right to say it, we'll miss you, Leo. Good luck in Turkey, and thanks for everything. As for this new chapter, we'll see whether Christos Tzolis becomes another example of Arsenal finding value where others weren't looking. But the ingredients? They're definitely there.